Hello, everybody. Welcome to the JennyQ show. I am so excited to be here. I am in the studios of 360 Immersive. I am with David Cleverding. He is a partner and owner of 360 Immersive, and we're going to geek out today.
Yes, we are.
We are going to totally geek out, and I'm so excited that you're here to join us and to watch. And I want your questions. I want to know what is interesting to you. So go ahead and leave a comment so that I can see that you're watching. Dave, is this your first time being live on Facebook?
No, actually, we have a tendency to live stream a lot. We believe in live streaming.
Okay.
It's something that is, for our organization and actually clients we serve, it's a huge value.
Yes. Well, yes. I mean, we're talking the same language there. I can't wait to dig into your specialty, though. Like, I love to geek out about all things technology, and I especially love doing it with people who know a lot more than I do, which would be you. So I'm excited to have you here. So those of you who are watching, leave a comment. I can see you're here, but I can't give you a shout out until you leave a comment. So I do want to say hello to Rob. He said, what happened to the green screen? He watched the preview where we actually saw the green screen. But now what happened to the green screen?
Well, as the reason you have a green screen is we can put in the JennyQ logo behind. It's called branding.
Yes, so there it is. I think he knew. I think he was teasing us. And so Leanne Simmons is here. Thank you. Leanne says we're cutting out. And so we'll just let Tom know that and see what he can do about that. And Paige is here. Welcome. So let's go ahead and jump in, David. You and I met several months ago at Idaho Virtual Reality Council, the kickoff, the founders kickoff. It was a very intimate group, very cool. And I remember our first conversation, and I can't wait to hear more about what you do at 360 Immersive. In fact, what is the name? How did you get the name?
Well, we're actually a 16-year-old marketing company. And about 2.5 years ago, we have been kind of tracking virtual reality. And when Oculus Rift was purchased by Facebook for $2.1 billion.
Yeah.
When Sony, when IBM, when Google, when all the big players started to invest in this thing called virtual reality. Now, virtual reality has been around for a long time. It's been used in aviation, in medical, in the military. But it's been hugely expensive. It's something that they recognize the value of training, but you couldn't go out and buy maybe a $35 goggle and pair it with your smartphone, and suddenly you have a way of experiencing virtual reality. But today in 2017, and 2.5 years in the past, we do. So what it is about, what is virtual reality?
Yeah, what is it? Like, what is it? Because we hear it thrown around a lot, VR, virtual reality, and then there's AR, augmented reality, and then just before we started, you told me there's mixed reality.
Mixed reality.
And so, all right, so give us the breakdown on those.
So if you think about it, when we watch any type of media, we watch a YouTube feed or Facebook feed on our phone, we're at home in the evening and we're watching reruns of Friends, or we're watching any other television show, it's a passive experience. It's an experience where we're literally just watching. Well, virtual reality or augmented reality is an immersive technology. It connects you. You're in the middle of that experience. You're interacting with that experience. And that's a whole new way of, for instance, marketing, training, entertainment, and gaming. All of that is not only in the existence for today, but it holds huge promise for the future. So if you think about it, wouldn't you rather be in the middle of a wonderful romantic comedy? Or maybe it's a game, or in our world, it's first responder training. So we're training law enforcement, we're training medical, we're training EMS, and we can put them in the middle of a simulation. Where in the past, the only way they could take that kind of training is running a simulation that's fairly expensive to do. They'll drive a tanker truck out on the freeway and they'll do hazmat training. Now we can flip that tanker truck over. We can have it leaking noxious fluids and fumes and vapors and potentially hazardous.
Wow.
And they can train on that simulation over and over and over again and
Phenomenal.
feel like they're in the middle of it.
Phenomenal. So that when the real emergency happens, they've been trained
That's right.
from anywhere literally in the world.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the fundamental question is, what is the difference between virtual reality? And what virtual reality does is it replaces your sense of your own reality. I'm looking at this studio and suddenly I put the goggle on and I can be teleported, for a better word, into that world where we have that tanker truck that's flipped over. Or in the case of augmented reality, I can layer over 3D graphics into my world here, and I can interface. And the biggest thing with augmented reality is it will replace the paradigm that we've been working with for the last 30 years of a display on our business computer, a keyboard, and a mouse. Well, imagine just having a little device, and suddenly I can put my calendar up over here, I can put my Word doc over here, I can put maybe a YouTube video down here, and I can have my email clients sitting over here, and as I move around the room, they're tied or pegged to those places I put them, and if I want to move it, I move it up on the wall over here, I put it over here. Augmented reality holds the promise of revolutionizing the business paradigm that we've all worked with, how we interface with our computers.
Wow. That's amazing. I definitely want to come back to that. Let me give a few more shout outs here to people who are watching.
Yeah.
Mitch Jackson is here. He is watching from Southern California. Welcome, Mitch. David Beasley is here. Hi, David. I think Dave is watching from Boise. Rob Gottlieb just said Oculus just lowered their price to $399.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is right.
So
short time only, so if you want a riff, go for it.
Okay, perfect. And I'm over here going, what does that mean? What is Oculus? What did they lower the price on?
Well, the Rift when it first came out was approximately an $800 buy, and we have a couple of them. We have the initial developers unit, and then we of course have a consumer version. But they've steadily brought the price point down, which you expect in consumer electronics, because if you can build something for the masses, you can sell a bunch of them. If it's, how many Lamborghinis do people sell versus how many Chevrolets?
Sure. Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. So you've worked with lots of different industries in the realm of virtual reality and augmented reality. Just give us a list of some of the industries that you've either provided training for or done, creation for, or, because when we met at the kickoff for Idaho Virtual Reality, I remember, I wish I could remember who said it, and it might have been you, but I don't know who said it. Somebody said that every time they talk to somebody about virtual reality, whichever industry they're in, once they experience it, not talk about, but once they experience it, put the goggles on, completely be immersed in the experience of it, whichever industry they're in, they can think of uses immediately to improve their industry. And that was compelling. And so tell us which industries that you've experienced, that you've worked with, that you've developed training for.
So there's really two aspects of the VR market that we approach. Number one is training. That is our passion when it comes to giving back to folks that take care of us, and that's fire, EMS, medical, security, law enforcement, workplace safety, workplace is, of course, OSHA related. And so when you're really talking about putting somebody in the middle of a simulation and allowing them to do a better job with training, that's the value. And professional trainers, and we have demoed to literally thousands of people, universally, when they put the goggle on, when they haven't put it on, they kind of look at it and they hear virtual reality and they think it's like science fiction.
Right.
But
sure.
once they put the goggle on, they understand the power of it almost immediately. You don't have to explain it to them. You don't have to do anything more than let them experience being in the middle of a simulation where typically all they can do is watch it. And then on the marketing side, you have the potential of connecting demographics and people with brands unlike any other time in the world. I can give you a Harley-Davidson app that will let you ride a Harley-Davidson virtually. You're almost expecting
Wow.
to feel the
Wow.
the wind in your face, the bugs in your
Wow.
teeth.
We can
can
skip
let
that
you
part.
test drive vehicles prior to going down to the dealership. Instead of wanting to test drive 10 new cars, you'll know, because you have tried those 10 new cars virtually, you'll know that you actually want to experience those 2 cars. So you're saving your time, you're saving the dealership's energy and the salesperson's resources, and you get a much better experience. If you want to plan a vacation, what better way to plan a vacation than to literally go to that resort and feel like you're in the middle of the hotel room, you're on the beach, you're doing all the things that you ultimately will do, and you can do it ahead of time rather than looking at pictures to open a brochure up. That's the way it's done now. But imagine being there, utilizing virtual reality. It's a new technology. It is a game changer.
It's totally a game changer. And so what have you seen in the medical field with using it? I know I read an article how they're using it in rehab, like teaching people how to walk again. Like, what have you seen there?
So we've done a pediatric trauma app where we've actually taken various teams from the inception of an accident involving a 10-year-old boy and going all the way through the dispatch, the ability for EMS to come in, law enforcement comes in, they transport it to a rural hospital. The hospital, after going through a number of different processes and bringing in several teams into their ED or what's their emergency department, they determine that in this simulation that the child is injured to the point that they can't take care of him. So they then have to transport to a major medical facility so that they can take care of the child. And if you think of all the interactions, not only on various teams, but various personnel, and we've documented that whole process. When you're talking about medical, you can talk about, for instance, something that's near to our heart is how EMS and law enforcement react to folks with mental illness. And we've actually developed an initial project dealing with schizophrenia. And the ability for law enforcement to understand what somebody suffering from that disorder, they hear voices from all over, and the voices can be disparaging. They can be can really be horrible if you want to use that word. And then their vision shifts and their color shifts. And so if law enforcement or EMS or health and welfare, if they're doing an assessment, could understand what these people are going to and to be able to de-escalate the situation rather than maybe take a more assertive role.
Right. That's profound. That's phenomenal. Like there's one, like instead of hoping that there can be empathy, like you're in it. So it's empathy, it's compassion, it's completely connecting. That's phenomenal. I want to just give a few more shout outs here. We've got more people watching. Shelly Gartman is here. Hello, Shelly. And Barb Tomlin, welcome. Carrie Motley, hello. Claudia Santiago, hello. Kurt Kuntz. Lori Winford, hi, Kurt. Kurt just had surgery. I wonder how he's doing. He's a friend of mine. Anyway.
Oh.
Feel better, Kurt.
Kurt, get well, man.
And then Greg Grayson is here. Hello, Greg. And Charity Majors, welcome. If I missed you, please leave a comment so that I can see you're watching. I can only see how many viewers, and I can only see when you've left a comment. So, all right. So, wow. See, this is why I want to know which industries are being helped. I would have never connected the dots that mental illness, combining law enforcement, creating this amazing situation.
Well, I'll give you a situation that most people don't realize. When you walk into a Walmart store,
Right.
they've just initiated a whole training program based on virtual reality.
Wow.
Because we think of Walmart as being kind of low cost, certainly affordable when it comes to goods and services and products.
Sure.
But sometimes I don't think of Walmart as being really forward-thinking, and yet they are. Because if you think of, they're the largest retailer in the world, and they must be. And you can look at, I mean, if you're talking about that step into marketing, which along with first responder training, you can literally, anything that takes you into a world, virtual reality can apply to. For instance, you can demo a product and you can actually put somebody right in with that product as that product is performing, and they can understand why. Because you can look around. For instance, let's say that I'm Nike and I want to, and I'm running and I've got a new set of jogging clothes, I've got new shoes, I am Nike or I'm Under Armour, and not only I'm just watching these folks, but I'm with them.
Amazing.
I'm running.
You can run the marathon with them.
You could.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would ever want to, but you could.
No, but yeah, okay, so are there any industries that you can think of or segments that you haven't seen them use, you haven't seen VR in that segment? You're like, oh, I can't wait till it hits there.
The VR works really well when it comes to situational-based environments. So if I wanted to show somebody how to use this phone, that's a very detailed circumstance. But what I can do is I can show, if from a marketing or instructional standpoint, I can show somebody having a wonderful time with this. This happens to be a Note 5, and no, it doesn't blow up. I can show somebody how to use it, and in circumstances where it's a great phone and Samsung is a great product. And then I can weave in to that experience what we call a 2D or traditional video that actually shows how I'm going to use that phone. So it's a hybrid or marriage of a virtual experience and that detail that takes me down so I can see some specific things. I'll give you an example. Some of the new cameras coming out, they actually have GPS and accelerometers just like our phones. And so that these new VR cameras allow us to track not only what's going on in a circumstance, but they have overlays where I can weave in GPS data, elevation and speed and pitch and roll, and especially for people that are trying to do training or, for instance, motorcycle training. I want to show how much somebody should lean into a curve. Well, all that data is built into that stream, so it's a brand new thing.
Well, okay, so one more. Well, since we're on equipment and gear, what's available for the average consumer, just like a hobbyist? What's available for them to either experience VR, or maybe even create some VR on their own?
Well, there's a number of cameras that used to be that the first VR cameras coming out were approximately $60,000. And a lot of the cameras were built. There wasn't anything you could buy off the shelf. You would build what's called a rig, and you'd take commonly a bunch of GoPro cameras, and then you'd have to stitch the footage, you'd have to put it together, so it was hugely labor intensive. Nowadays, the average consumer that wants to create their own VR camera, VR experience can literally take their phone and a module that plugs into it, it looks like a little ball or a couple lenses, and whether it's an iPhone or Android, for $100 and some, you have the ability to create your own virtual experiences. You can get into it. Is the quality as good from a production standpoint? No, but it's only a $100 camera.
Right.
Is it wonderful for people wanting to share experiences and all the things that they normally share with their friends and post it to Facebook Live, post it to YouTube Live? I mean, literally just step into the world of virtual reality. $100 will buy you that.
That's very cool. That's very cool. So I like how we just did that segue into, not just virtual reality and augmented reality, but how we can combine that with live streaming, because that's kind of my deal,
Yes.
And so what have you seen? How have you seen people do that in a really innovative way?
So live streaming is new. it's, I mean,
Sure, relatively new,
it's
yeah.
a wonderful concept because we can sit and we can essentially, we've created our own little mini television stations. It used to be able to broadcast out a show, you had to have a huge organization, a lot of equipment, but now with the power of a phone, you've got that in your hand via Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and some of the other Periscope and so forth. But imagine being able to stream live in a surrounding. So maybe you're at a coffee shop and you're having a wonderful conversation with the group of people around you. And people can look around and they can see the expressions on everybody's face. They can interact just as if they were seated there. I'll give you another extension.
Amazing.
If you want to think about sports, and I'm going to use the Seahawks, and people have their own sports teams certainly. But think about a Seahawks game. In a Seahawks game, if you buy a good ticket, you're going to pay a couple $100s. Number one, you have to be up there. You've got to be in Seattle. You've got to then fight the crowds, and then you're at the game and you're paying $15 beer. And it's a process, but you're at the game. You feel like you're at the game. You're part of the team. Now, let's drop in virtual reality. So instead of maybe $200, $300, $400 for a family or maybe an individual, I can buy a seat to be at the 50-yard line. And I'm going to feel like I'm there.
Right. And to get a 50-yard line seat in person is not going to be a few $100s.
No, it is absolutely not. And not only that,
Right.
so I feel like I'm there because I can look and I can see this guy sitting next to me and I can see this gal sitting over here. And the beer is a lot less expensive because I can walk into the fridge and
you're warm. Like when you were describing that, I was thinking back in the day when we lived at the Air Force Academy.
yes.
And we went to a home game, and it was snowing, like we had a foot of snow, and I remember sitting there with the blankets, and I was just shivering, and I was thinking, why am I doing this, But it was the experience, it was the team, and that would have been so much nicer.
Well, not only that, but if you think
Couch.
about that one seat at a Seahawks game, is let's use $200 as a number.
Okay.
And when somebody purchases that seat, they purchase a ticket. That's all they're going to get.
Right.
But if I take that same seat and I put in a VR camera, professional grade, of course,
Sure.
where I feel all of the experiences, suddenly I can sell that via the miracle of the internet. I can sell that 10,000 times over. And I can give people the ability to experience being on the 50-yard line at a Seahawks game, even when they're in Dallas or they're in Afghanistan, perhaps, if they
Right.
have the connection. So you can extend the impact of that team and also the revenue stream, of course, but more so the fan base of the team can feel far more connected to that team.
Yes.
And it will come. The day and perhaps even if you buy a premium seat, I can go from 50-yard over here to the end zone over here to, this.
And it's not, the day is not far away.
No,
The day is
absolutely
not far away.
not.
And so when you said Afghanistan, I immediately thought military.
Yes.
And so how have you seen the military using VR and AR?
Well, the military's been using VR for decades.
Sure.
But they have the budgets. I mean, for instance, in our location, we have the Idaho National Lab, and they have a room, what they call is a cave, and essentially it's one gigantic VR experience. Now, the problem with the cave, and they have cave setups in many different installations that are governmental or military-based, is that they're expensive. You're probably looking at an order of magnitude of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And then the content is difficult to create and implement into those type of systems. In a situation like this, we can go out and we can shoot a live experience, and within the next day, we can have that in an app on the phone and being experienced in the classroom the next day. So the value and the power of virtual reality has been experienced by the military for a long time. They've got the budgets to do that. But finally, the average consumer, the average organization, the folks in corporate like Walmart and some of the other corporate entities that are pushing out into this arena can experience it, and it's affordable, it's cost effective. And that's the important thing.
Absolutely. And and here's another industry that I'm thinking of. Have you seen it used in the courtroom? Have you seen the legal?
We have talked to
Counsel
folks
use it.
about that.
Yeah?
We haven't actually done a proof of concept on that, but absolutely, you can experience, it's an experience.
Right.
Wherever you want to go, whether it be in the courtroom or on the beach in Maui, it's still an experience.
I mean, can you imagine as an attorney taking the jury to the crime scene?
We have talked we did a counterterrorism conference about almost 3 months ago now.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things that we brought away, which we had never considered is from a forensics or CSI standpoint, is to be able to document a crime scene and you're shooting every little bit. If I were to take a camera and I'm shooting, I'm trying to shoot the blood splat.
Right.
I mean, we don't want to talk about blood too much here, but, the things that have happened within the crime scene, I may miss that little bit over there. But let's say that I go through with a VR camera and I can capture everything that can be seen just as with a real human.
Without touching it and tampering with it and moving it.
Absolutely.
Nice. I love it. I love it.
So interactivity is kind of a big thing in VR. We all think of gaming. You move
Sure.
through and you shoot, but think of the ability to move through, and we're working on several projects now that you can move through a scene and you can assess it from a hazmat circumstance, and that you can then make some decisions, like a decision tree. Think of an alternative end as a movie. You can choose the end.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And maybe, especially in hazmat, where you have hazardous materials, maybe one of those alternative endings to your movie, you become part of the problem. So you want to learn the decisions that allow you to make the correct decisions versus perhaps making an incorrect decision. And then there's testing heat mapping. We can actually look around and we can tell where people are looking in a VR circumstance. So if, for instance, what we're really trying to focus on is over here, and everybody, maybe there's a pretty gal over there, or something they're distracted by over there, we either need to change our content or make them aware that even if you have distractions in an environment, you need to really focus all around because you'll miss something. And in law enforcement or security, that can be the difference between life and death.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. I just checked at the time. I can't even believe it, but we're out of time. I feel like that flew by. I feel like we just got started.
We did.
So we're going to have to do this again.
Absolutely.
If anybody has a question for you and wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
360immersive.com. That's the easiest way.
Okay.
I mean, I would have to remember our phone number by heart, which I
No,
don't.
you're good. We can look it up. We can look it up. Yeah, that's good.
But the bottom line is this is an amazing technology. It allows you to do some things that we've only dreamed about and that relationship to science fiction, and yet it is here today. And I would urge you all to embrace it, to experiment with it, and to just be aware because it will affect you in your daily lives.
So what you're saying is it's not a fad.
It is absolutely
It's
not a
not
fad.
a fad. All right. Well, David, thank you for letting me come into your studio and do this. This was a great experience. You guys are clearly pros. A big shout out to Tom, who's behind the scenes running everything, making it look amazing. And thank you to all the viewers who watched live and those of you who are watching the replay. And we are out. But before we go, remember to live well, have fun, and love others. Bye, y'all.
Thank you.